Hello everyone and welcome to the introduction to AWS Crash Course. I'm thrilled to be your instructor for this journey. Throughout my career, I had a privilege to work on diverse projects and solving challenges into the DevOps domain. As your instructor, my primary goal is to ensure your success. I'm passionate about my sharing information and expertise with the students and empowering them in excelling their careers. With an engaging and supportive teaching style, I'm here to guide you through each and every step of the learning journey. Feel free to reach me out with any questions and concerns. I'm here to help. Thank you for joining us, and I'm here to embark on this journey together. With further ado, let's deep dive into the fascinating world of AWS. Thanks a lot. Hi everyone. In this session, we are going to understand about VPC endpoint. So the question can be asked into the follow-up way, like what is the difference between interface endpoint and the gateway endpoint? So generally, when we are connecting to the AWS services like S3, DynamoDB, that is completely managed by AWS. In such situation, we can connect them securely. Rather than going through the public IP, we can securely connect them internally. Let's understand more about it. So it's a service that has been provided by it that allows you to privately connect your VPC to support your AWS supported services like without requiring internet gateway, net gateway, VPN connection or direct connection. So we won't be requiring any particular access to the internet, net gateway, VPN or direct connect to the AWS services. We can internally connect them. So this enables you to access AWS services securely and efficiently within your VPC without exposing the traffic to the public internet. Let's assume this is my VPC and this is the AWS services being hosted like S3 for the utilization. So in order to send my request, what I generally do, I utilize internet gateway and then connect to the AWS services. So this is exposed to the internet. So rather than doing so, what we can do, we can utilize endpoint and connect them internally as they are both part of AWS services. Now let's understand more about it. What are its key features? So in key features, it's providing the private connectivity and we as connecting with the services through internal usage rather than exposing it external uses like internet gateway, net gateway for the utilization. It provides secure communication as we are not exposing ourselves. It eliminates the usage of net gateways and internet gateways and improve performance because in the internet gateways or the public internet, there are several things that we have to think of, like the communication speed, the network speed, and all the things that needs to be transferred, the traveling time, all the things can affect the speed of the use case, has increasing the latency. So in order to prevent that, we can utilize the endpoint. So VPC endpoint are provided into two flavors, which is gateway endpoint and the interface endpoint. Let's understand more about them. So gateway endpoint is specifically for the specific services like S3 and DynamoDB, whereas the functionality is to route traffic using predefined VPC endpoints. So this is a very specific limited. So gateway endpoints is generally less in number and it is for the specific services for the utilization. Whereas interface endpoint is for the broader range like AWS services, services from other accounts, marketplace services. So if you have to utilize the interface endpoint, you have a more wider range for the utilization. And they have a special service called private link or the ENI to connect them. So this is how you can connect the interface endpoint and the gateway endpoint. So gateway endpoint is dedicatedly available for specific service and interface is for the majorly all the broader range for the use case which is utilized using the private link. Hi everyone. In this session, we are going to understand about the VPC peering. So the question can be asked into the interview how you can share resources between different VPCs for the utilization. So in order to connect to the two different VPCs securely, like making communication or connection between two VPC, how is that possible? Yes, it's possible using the VPC peering connection. Let's see how. So VPC peering connection is a networking connection between two virtual VPCs in the same or the different AWS regions, allowing them to communicate with each other as if they are on the same network. So if you are connecting two VPCs, VPC A and VPC B, so in order to connect them and communicate them securely, so we can directly utilize VPC peering for the utilization. It is used to establish private connectivity between VPC without the need of internet gateway, VPN connections, or any direct physical connection. So it's like a particular dedicated connection they are utilizing of the AWS to make the connection between them securely. So its key features are private connectivity, because we are connecting two or more VPCs directly. So let's say there are three VPC out here, A, B, and C. So in order to, let's say A is connected to B and B is connected to C. But in order to connect A to C, we can't say A is directly connected to C. So we have to specifically make a connection. So here transient or connection is not allowed. So A, B, and C. If these are the three network A, B, and VPC, there are three VPC being available. We can't say A is not connected to C. In order to connect to the C, it has to be specifically dedicated connection needs to be made. So secure communication is available for the use case because we are not utilizing any internet for the utilization. It is connecting through the private connectivity. We can share the resources among the different VPCs for the utilization. That's the main working, and cost optimization as if we are in the same network. So there's no external cost required for the internet communication, and transitive peering is not spotted. The thing I was telling. So transitive peering is not allowed here. A is equal to B is equal to C is not possible. So A and B is connected, B and C is connected. So in order to connect, C and A should be there. So every connection needs to be made separately in order to connect. Hi everyone. Let's see few more set of real-time questions. The question is by when you would prefer to use provisioned IOPS over the standard RDS storage. So AWS provides several kinds of storage when we are working with RDS. So one of the kind is IOPS based and the second is standard, which is your GP2 or GP3. So what are IOPS? IOPS are input output operations per second. So this is generally utilized when you are working on a high level or high computational kind of environment. So let's understand both this into the greater aspects. So provisioned IOPS is a feature provided by AWS RDS that allows to provision specific input output operations performance for their database instances. So let's say if you want a higher quality of output, as in faster performance, low latency, and you want the data to be available into the quick form. So you are going to opt for the provisioned IOPS. Whereas into the standard RDS storage, provision is the baseline performance is given with the ability to burst to a higher level during peak usage period. So when you're working on standard performance based environment, so you can opt for the standard RDS. So let's now see in this situation provisioned IOPS is better than standard storage. So when there is a high transactional workloads, let's say there are huge workload in which the transactions, let's say input output operations are huge. So in that situation, we are gonna work on the provisioned IOPS. In the second option, where the latency is sensitive, so in which we require low latency. So low latency is the key feature when we are working on the latency based application. The third is large databases, when we have to get the output in the or put down the output into the large databases. Fourth one, in the intensive workloads. So intensive workloads where is a huge requirement of input output operations in both the sides. So in that situation, we are going to opt for the provisioned IOPS. So this is the key requirement. Hi everyone. In this session, we are going to see some of the question sets. The first question is going to be, what is server? And there is always a follow-up question on this. What are the disadvantages of on-prem or traditional computing? So in this, the interviewer is always trying to set the pace of how the interview is going to be taking place. So these are the very basic questions that the interview starts with. So in order to answer them, let's see. So the answer is going to be as following. So if we are taking the interview in terms of AWS, so it is going to be started as, in terms of AWS, a server is typically refers to a virtual or a physical machine, an operating system, and hosting applications and services. So any system, whether It's a mobile, laptop, who can host an applications on it can be considered as a server. So in the context of AWS, the servers are generally EC2 machines. So when we talk about servers in AWS, we generally talk about the EC2 machines. Following up on the same, the second part of the question was the problems into the traditional system. So the user or the questioner is gonna ask what was the problem, why we switched from the traditional system to the cloud. So the answer is because of the cost of physical access. Like we have several systems out there, several servers out there, which needs to be managed manually. Requirement of power supply, cooling, and maintenance of those servers were done at the traditional center by the team. So manpower was required. We required 24/7 monitoring. So if we have n number of server, we are going to make sure everyone is running successfully. Rather than if someone fails, it should be notified and rectified at that point of time. So in that situation, we are going to require 24/7 monitoring. So and in order to manage all these systems, we require space and data centers so that we can make sure things are happening at the right space. Moreover, when there is a issue in scaling and disaster issues, so in terms of sales, let's take an example whether we are having sale in Amazon or any other e-commerce site. So during that site, the traffic consumption is so huge, we want the system to manage them accordingly. Auto scaling should take place and everything should be managed automatically, but in the traditional system this was not easy to achieve. So that's why we switched to traditional to cloud. So this is the first section the person or the interviewer wants to know. In the second part of the question, they want to understand. The question goes like, what is cloud computing and what are the benefits of it? So these are the basic sets of questions the interviewer wants us to answer. In the cloud computing, the basic definition is like it's an on-demand delivery of computing services, including servers, storage, databases, networking, and n number of things related to the system. So everything related to the system, servers, or computing services are gonna be offered over the internet. So all the service can be accessed over the internet rather than managing them physically. So typically you don't have to manage all the things at your end. So you have to just pay. So it's more or less like a renting system at a single click. Uh, So it is provided as pay as you go basis, allowing organization to lower their operating cost, run their infrastructure more efficiently, and scale business as the need changes. So this is the basic requirement of the cloud computing. So let's see some of the benefits of it. So we have the flexibility. So flexibility of choosing which kind of machine. So when we opt for the cloud computing, we have n number of options like which kind of machine we need to acquire. So let's take an example, very basic example in terms of Windows machine. So we require i3. Currently, for the particular task, I require i9 type of machines or i11, or as per the requirement, I require different kind of machine. So I do have the flexibility of choosing what kind of processor I require. Scalability, whether I require one server or thousands of servers. So all this is possible on a single click. Cost effective, why so cost effective? So when we are working into the traditional system, we have to buy the system. We have to maintain that. So there is a huge cost related to it. Whereas we in the cloud just pay for the R system. So how much time we are going to utilize? So that is going to be marked as cost effective. High availability. So we have several regions available into the working. So in this, that makes the situation highly available. So global accessibility, so we can go global on a single click. We can opt for the high performance and security side. So all those features are available into the cloud computing. So the interviewer wants to know some of them like flexibility, scalability, cost effectiveness, high availability. These are the basic terms you should know for the benefits of cloud computing. So these are the some of the question sets the users looks for. Thanks a lot. Hi everyone. Let's see some more questions. So the first set of questions can be asked in two ways. So what are the different cloud computing models? The second is what is the difference between infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. So we got three different computing models for the usage. So and basis on that we can be having several questions on it. So the user even can ask just about a single computing model which is infrastructure as a service or platform as a service. So it's totally a single way of asking the questions out. So let's see the how to answer it. So basically, in all the three different computing models, we have different responsibilities for the usage. For the infrastructure as a service, we don't manage the hardware part. So majorly all the hardware part is going to be managed by AWS. So till here, which is till the virtualization level, it is going to be managed by AWS. Whereas in the platform as a service, we are more concerned about what we are developing, like web app. So we are just concerned about how we are developing what is available in our website. So we are just concerned about our application and its data. We are not even considered where it is running, on which operating system it is running. So we are not concerned about that. So the third kind of is a software as a service. So in this we are just utilizing the service. So the final utilization is in our hand. So let's see the example. You can take the example of software as a service as a Google Drive. So in terms of AWS, the example of PaaS is gonna be Elastic Beanstalk. So Elastic Beanstalk is a service which is based on PaaS level. Then for the infrastructure as a service, the most famous and the most utilized service is EC2. So these are the different services. So in order to cover once again all the services, so in the infrastructure as a service, it's a foundational of computing model as it is most primarily used by EC2. And we have the responsibility even of the operating system, applications, data and security. And the major benefits are we have a more control on the use case. We have a high control, customization is possible and scalability is allowed. Moreover, the drawbacks are it is highly complex. We need time for the services and it is ideal for the high control activities. Whereas in the platform or service, we are concerned just about the development part, the application side. So for faster development, reduced complexity, when we are just concerned about our work, then we should opt for platform as a service. So although there is a less control, but we have a vendor check-in like as in the AWS is gonna be responsible for the operating system part. So faster application development as we are just concerned about it. And software as a service is the final product, just utilizing. Even the Gmail is a final product. So ready to use software, just access, easy to use, limited control. We can just make the limited control. We can't manage like on which port it's running. We can't do anything, just utilizing the service. So it's easy to use, minimal upfront investment. So the most widely used, the EC2 is the example of infrastructure as a service. For the platform as a service, Elastic Beanstalk. And for the software as a service, you can take an example of Google Drive, Gmail, S3. So there are several services available out there. So where the infrastructure as a service is used, when we have to manage the entire major part rather than just hardware part like operating system, applications, everything that is going to be coming under the infrastructure as a service. For the platform as a service, we are just managing our application. So how we are developing the application, how it is going to be managed, all the data that is going to be coming under the platform as a service. In the software as a service, it's the final product that we are utilizing. So this is how you can answer the different computing models. Hi everyone. Let's see few more set of question. The question goes by what is multi-AZ database and how can we achieve fault tolerance in the database? This is also one of the key concept of a multi-AC. So this helps in making and achieving the fault tolerance and highly availability with the requirement. So this is very much important when we are working into the production level. And in case our primary database goes down and we need a standby database, then in that situation, we can opt for the multi-AZ database. Let's understand how it works. So it is used for achieving highly availability and fault tolerance. Maintains synchronous replication between the primary and the standby database. Let's consider it with the real-time situation when we are working in the team. So there is a field team and there is a standby team. The standby teams comes into the picture when field teams fails out or requires any support. So during that situation, if the field teams fails out, we get the standby to work for the field team. So that's the utilization. So if my primary database goes down in that situation, the standby database is going to come into the situation. This is my primary database. This is my standard database. So when it fails down only, then standby database is going to come into the picture. So provides automatic failover protection in case of a failure or maintenance event affecting the primary database. Recommended for application that require continuous availability and minimal downtime. So generally into the production level environment, we opt for the multi-AZ so that we can achieve the higher tolerance for the working. Ensures data consistency and minimal failover time by synchronously replicating changes to the standby instances. So everything is going to be replicated synchronously rather than async as per the read replicas. Moreover, in the multi-AZ deployment, as you can see, the router, the primary standby is going to synchronously do the replication into the standby connection. If it is going to fail, this connection is going to move out and this is going to be your main connection. This is the utilization of multi-AZ deployment. Hi everyone. Let's start with the one of the most crucial concept of AWS, which is your EC2. EC2 is one of the key services that AWS started with, and it's most widely used into the cloud computing system. And the other question can be asked into the form how you can create virtual servers into the cloud of AWS. So this service is one of the most utilized service and one of the key features. So entirely most of the services revolve around the usage of EC2. So let's see what's a EC2 is. So EC2 is a elastic compute cloud, which is a service provided by AWS that enables businesses to run applications on the AWS infrastructure. So what does AWS provide? They provide you the facility to start a server over the cloud. So that server is named as EC2 instance. In the general terms, either you can say it as EC2 instance, server, machine, and even EC2 is also enough. And these are the virtual server that can be customized with various configuration of CPUs, memory, storage, networking capacity, and graphics hardware. So let's consider when you go into the market and you go for buying a laptop or a device. So in that situation, the shopkeeper asks you all the details about the usage, like what kind of system you are looking for, what's the CPU you are looking for, memory, network, and everything. So that's way similarly AWS provides all the facility to choose from, right? So how you can choose the fit EC2 instance for you? You can select the region in which you want to create the instance in, and then the architecture. Architecture ARM based, AMD based. So moreover 32-bit, 64-bit, and several other architecture you can look for. Compute is the type of machine you are looking for, whether you are looking for T2 micro, T2 uh, medium, or any kind of usage as per your requirement. Then the memory. Memory is generally the RAM you are looking for. So based on your requirement, let's say 1 GB. So it can provide up to 128 GB, 256 GB. So these are the different kind of RAMs that AWS can provide up to. Storage. So storage is generally provided by EBS volumes and it can go up to into the terabytes form. And minimum for the Linux machine is 8 GB and maximum it can go into the TBs. And the last one is the network performance. Based on the requirement, you opt for the network performance, how fast and what kind of network interface the system sports. So following up on the same, the user or the interviewer wants to understand the most commonly used database, which is your RDS. So what are the AWS RDS features and how it is different from a traditional database? So as you know, AWS provides managed services and RDS is a managed service. So let's understand its key features for the utilization. First of all, it's a managed services. So if the service is managed, it will be highly available, highly durable, cost effective, and performance based. These are the things that AWS offers at least into the all managed services. Moreover, it supports multiple database engines like MySQL, Postgres. So moreover, it has also started supporting the other organization databases like Oracle, IBM, and several others. Moreover, it is having automated backups, highly available, scalable for the working. So we can scale the services by using read replicas, creating the backups, and using the high availability using multi-AZ feature. So these are the several features that we are aware of. So these are the basic working. Other than that, it involves closely with CloudWatch and CloudTrail for the monitoring and metrics. And it has the security side using the IAM. Performance insights will be giving you all the related information about the performance, cross-region replication, and cost effective. So this is the basic features that are being provided into the RDS. Moreover, RDS, as you know, it's a SQL-based services where we can do joins and perform several actions based on the SQL queries. So these are the features provided to us by AWS on the RDS. Furthermore, let's see some of the databases that are specifically supported by RDS. RDS being the wider term or the generic term, which means relational databases. Now let's understand what are the different databases that are available under the RDS, or what are the different organizations databases that are supported by AWS in RDS. So MySQL, Aurora, Postgres, Aurora. So these are AWS proprietary. First two are AWS proprietary. They are the special features or the special AWS databases provided by and created by AWS. Then open source MySQL, MariaDB, Microsoft SQL, Oracle, and IBM. Hi everyone, let's understand few more concepts for the working. This is very much important to understand the purchasing side of the EC2 options. So the question can be asked into the option, what are the different purchasing options available into the EC2? So this question is very relevant when we are working about the cost based analysis. So this is very much required when we are gonna opt for the purchasing side. So AWS offers different types of purchasing options into the EC2. Let's see them. So there are four options available. One is on demand, second reserve, third is spot instances, fourth is dedicated. So these are the four different options that are available for the requirement. Now let's see each one by one. The first one, the commonly used and most utilized is the on demand. So it is charged per second and it is hour of usage. Maximum flexibility, no upfront costs, scalable and available. So this is the general way of launching the instances when we are not just opting for any different kinds of purchasing option. We are just launching a server. This is the most utilized and most common way and on demand. In this, you don't have to pay any upfront cost and we can increase the server as per the requirement. Let's say at one time I require only 0 server and another minute I require 100 servers. I can easily do so, and it is always available into the different availability zones and regions for the use case. The second is the reserved instances. So reserved is like a taking a plan for 1 to 3 years. So AWS allow you to take the plan for 1 year till the 3 years pro plan. So they are gonna reserve the instances for you. So what's the benefit of it? It offers almost 75% of the discount based on the on-demand prices, and it helps in saving the significant cost and guaranteed capacity. So for you, the instance will be always reserved and available for the use case. But the downfall is that you have to reserve the instances for at least 1 to 3 years. This is the second way. The third option, and the most cheapest of all, so it's the sport instances. Sport instances is the cheapest of all. So how it is? It's like a bidding system that is taking place. So when the AWS resources are getting unutilized, so they are unutilized by any other vendors or anyone. So in that situation, AWS provides sale on those services. So that services are available for the sale. So but the issue is that they can take up the remove the sale anytime and ask them to return the server within 5 minutes. So that's the issue with it. Although it offers up to 90% discount, so it is lowest, but it requires tolerant based interruptions. So let's say a batch working can be taking place, but not your critical task. Critical task should not be running on the spot instances. So any task that is critical should not be running on the spot instances because we are unable to manage the cost over there. So AWS can come and ask for the resources back within the 5 minutes. So it is for the services that can be handle the interruptions between them. The fourth one is the dedicated one. So when you are opting for the service that requires specific instances not to be shared by under the hardware. So in that instance is specifically designed for you. So in this, you have got the option that you maintain your security. Everything is going to be fully dedicated to your running instances, and you can even bring your existing per socket per core per VM software licenses to reduce cost. It is pay by hour and instances run on single tenant hardware. Hi everyone, let's understand a few more concepts. So the question goes by, what is cache process? So this question can be easily asked and surely asked when the questions on the Elastic Cache comes out, because the person wants to understand whether you understand the process of cache or not. This is a backend that is taking place. So if you are gonna apply into the product level based organization or so, so in that the process of cache is very much important in order to understand. So the process of cache takes into generally three steps. First of all, the user requests for data. It checks for the data available into the main memory for the data. So let's say this is a user and it looks for a data into the database. So before that, there is a layer of cache system that is taking place. So if the data is available out here, then the data is retrieved and sent back from here itself. That's the first process. This is called a cache hit. If the data is found inside a cache, it's called a cache hit. It is returned immediately, leading for a faster response time. And cache miss, when the data is not available into the cache, the data is then transferred into the database. Then from here it is returned back to the user, and that data is saved into the cache for the further usage. Let's understand this concept in more detail. So if the data is not found, the application queries the database, retrieves the data, stores the copy of it in the cache for future requests, then returns it to the user. Through the diagram, if you want to see, the first step is called taking data and checks into the cache. So this is the first step. So in the first step, the application looks for the data if it is available for the read. If it is a read, then it's called a cache hit. Then in the cache hit, the data is available. It's called cache hit. So in the second process, if the data is not available, it's called cache miss. Data not available. So the data is not available, then the application reads the data from the database and then it is written to the cache for the future use. This is for the future use so that if someone queries same kind of data, that it can be proceeded and finally provided from the cache in order to give the faster processing. This is the general process of caching, and one should understand how the cache process works. Hi everyone. Let's see few more set of question that is generally asked into the interview. So the question goes by, what is IAM user and what is IAM roles? This is the very basic question from the working of authorization and authentication of IAM. So the follow-up question can be based on it. What's the difference between these two? These are the basic question that is related to the IAM side. And knowing the difference between user and role is a must for the interview purpose and for the real-time use case. Let's see the difference and uses. IAM user is generally represented as a person or an application that interacts with AWS services. Each user has a unique name and the credentials associated with it. Let's say I, Karan, needs to be enrolled into the AWS console. So for that, I will be creating an IAM user for the working. The second is that they are used for granting long-term access. So as you know, the users like me, if I joined an organization or a project, I will be giving a user concept in order to utilize all the services that are being available. So such an example is developer or application running on EC2 instance. Furthermore, you can attach IAM policies to the user to give access to the resources. Now let's see what is IAM role. IAM role is similar to the user, but it is not associated with a specific person or the application. So it is, what is it? It is an assumed identity, such as IAM user, AWS services, or the external identities. It is not the actual user that is going to be added. It is just a temporary account. So let's say if in a team you got a particular auditing needs to be done. So for that user, I'm gonna assume a particular role. Let's say another example of it, if a user needs to, who is from the developer team, needs to act as with the HR team, so he can be assumed a role for a while. So IAM roles are usually delegate access to the AWS resources securely. For example, it is mainly used for the services or the application. Like if the EC2 instance want to access any other services like S3, work on the Lambda part, so you can provide those services with a particular role. You can create the role with permissions to access the S3 bucket, then assign the role to the EC2 instance. This allows the EC2 instance to access S3 bucket without storing long-term credentials for the use case. Let's see the difference using the table. The feature, it represents a person, or IAM role is used for a service or an application generally. And in the credentials form, it is IAM user is always a long term and role is for the temporary basis. Access is given directly to the user, whereas for the IAM role, it is assumed. Use cases, it is using programmatic access with infrequent manual accesses. You can do whatever you feel like in the IAM user. You should be given the access, how many times you log in, what kind of access you're doing, everything is made available to you. Whereas for the assumed role, which is gonna be taking place for a particular time period, and it is gonna be given to the services, application, instances, security, it requires a password in the user. It's normally like a username and password system. Whereas IAM role is more secure, no credential to steal. So it is a for a particular time period of time. So it is not requiring any credentials for the use case. Hi everyone. In this session, we are going to understand RDS proxy. So the question can be asked into the form how we can improve the RDS performance in a short-lived connections. Or the question can be into the straightforward way, what is RDS proxy? So in order to make the process way faster and the utilized and keep the overload less on the RDS instance, so we can utilize RDS proxy, which is an additional functionality. So basically, how does an RDS proxy? Let's understand more about it. So let's take a connection. If several microservices like Lambda function, any users, short-lived connections are coming out, instead of making the connection directly to the RDS, what we can do, we can put down RDS proxy out here, and that will gonna fetch the things into a RDS. So this is going to be RDS and this is going to be proxy. So all the short-lived, like the Lambda function, which is just running for a while, your users, which just have a small functions out here. So all those functionality generally into the microservices that can be utilized to make sure the process is smoother and less overloaded on the RDS system. So it's a fully managed service that allows application to efficiently manage database connection to RDS and Aurora databases. It acts as an intermediary between applications and the database. As I told, it is placed between the database, which is your RDS, and your users for the utilization, optimizing the connection usage and reducing the overhead. So its main key features are connection pooling, highly availability, security integrations, and automatic scaling. So connection pooling is in like if the connection is short-lived, rather than initiating the connections every time newly for each other, so it is going to utilize the same connection. So it's highly available as it's a fully managed service for the utilization. Moreover, it has a security and integration. You can include additional step of security and authentication out here. Moreover, automatic scaling, being the fully managed services, it helps in auto scaling. Now, the major use cases, as I told, is in the serverless application, microservices, and application may require bus traffic. So, serverless application like AWS Lambda, which is short-lived because the maximum time period of the AWS Lambda is only 15 minutes. So, these are the short-lived generally for the working. So, that can be used to create short-lived database connection. Bus traffic useful for the application that experience sudden spikes in traffic, and microservices that manages connections across multiple microservices for better scalability and efficiency. Let's see few more set of questions. So are the features of Redis and Memcache DB and explain the difference between this. So this question can be easily asked because there are two kinds of services provided, Redis versus Memcache. So this can be generally asked into the interview to understand what's the difference between them. So the basic of the meme cache is just simply, if I have to keep it into the simple words, it's just for the cache part, whereas Redis is can act as a cache plus entire DB for the use case. So the focus of memcache is simple high processing performance key value caching, whereas Redis provides a versatile in-memory data store, so it can even as a cache system plus a database. Durability, it's lost, it's like a RAM. So when the system restarts, it gets lost. Whereas in Redis, we can take the snapshot, make the replications in terms of a cluster, so it offers persistent for the use case. Use cases of the memcache is generally for the caching of the database. So session caching, temporary data. It's like storing a temporary files for the use case when the system starts, and after the system is shut down, it's all temporary data is lost. Whereas in the Redis, you can do the caching, provide the real-time application like messaging, leaderboards, like example of a Facebook leaderboard can be utilized into it. Then even it can be utilized as a primary database. So Redis has grown itself into the cache plus primary database. And complexity, being memcache, it's simpler to set up as it's just a normal cache system, whereas in Redis there is more complexity due to the additional features like of the database. And the ideal process of using cache is just for the basic needs and cost sensitive information. So let's say just for the caching and faster processing, then you can opt for the memcache. Whereas the data complex needs where you have to need to process the data and persistence is required, you should opt for the Redis. So in terms of persistent and complexity, then in that situation, you have to opt for the Redis database. So that's the basic difference between Memcache and the Redis. So that's all from this video. Thanks a lot. Hi everyone. Let's see few more set of questions. The question is based on the real time. So the question is asked by what is the difference between snapshot and a backup? So these are the two common keywords that you are gonna see when you are working on RDS. So when you are working on RDS, there is a situation where you have to choose between a snapshot and a backup. and most of the people doesn't know what's the basic difference between them. Now let's understand what's the difference between them and how we can utilize it. So basically, snapshot is a point in time. So it can be as a particular period of time a photo can be taken of the database. So it's a point in time copy of data stored into the RDS instance. So when you want to take the real time or the current particular moment of time, the snapshot, you are gonna opt for the snapshot. The data for a particular point of time, in that situation, snapshot. It captures the exact state of the data at a specific moment of time. This is the key important aspect. It is gone for a specific moment in time, including all data, logs, and system configuration. And it is used for data recovery and are typically used for the disaster recovery and data migration processes. Taking an example, when you have to migrate the data instantaneously and you have to take the snapshot in that situation. Whereas backups are a copy of data in a RDS instance that is created at a specific interval, let's say daily or weekly. So you can take a backup as an automated process that is like a cron job that is taking place either daily, weekly, or depending on the requirement you are doing so. And it is also used for the data recovery and used for the data retention and compliance purposes. So let's say in a situation when you want instant particular period of time, so you are gonna opt for the snapshot. Whereas if it is a kind of a cron job, then you are gonna opt for the back. Now let's see the basic difference. So the RDS snapshot is point in time and RDS backup is a incremental backup. So any change, any modification done, it will be changed to the back. Creation, RDS snapshot can be manual or automated. Backups are automated in nature. Use cases, snapshots are used for the migration, disaster recovery, and testing, whereas backups are for the compliance and disaster recovery. Retention, as snapshots are generally saved into the S3, it is a manual control or the lifecycle management tools, whereas data backups are majorly used for the up to 35 days of retention period. Cost of the retention is the particular size, and whereas RDS data backup is free during the retention period and afterwards it is gonna cost you out.